was the first person who chose a site on the Evchevsky Bridge. This is how it happened. In one of the houses on Moika embankment lived the Canal, Yuri Golovkin, a relative of the imperial family. Once the emperor invited the Count to dine at the Winter Palace. Golovkin was in such a hurry that he slipped and fell into the water when he was taking a boat. To prevent similar accidents, the emperor had suggested building a bridge here. Living in St Petersburg with a view of the canal meant not only to build a house there, but also to take care of the area around it. For example, a deed of gift for house construction in the vicinity of the Moika, position and the condition of the mandatory finishing of the canal with timber edging. Emperor Peter the Great took constant care of his pet project and even issued a decree on cleaning the embankments. Those who poured sewage in the river were fined and whipped, and in some cases were even sent to hard labor in exile. St. Petersburg was founded in 1703 by a decree of the Russian Emperor Peter I. The land where the city is built had been controversial for a long time. Originally, it belonged to the Russians and was later conquered by the Swedes. The area formed a part of Palace where Russian emperors lived. When the gallery was built, envious critics tried to defame the architect Yuri Felton in the eyes of the client, Empress Catherine II, and spread the rumor on the right there is the Trinity Bridge, along which the Pulkovo meridian passes. Prior to the beginning of the 20th century, this meridian was used as a zero meridian for reading longitudes on maps of the Russian Empire. High up in the sky is a hovering angel in the spire of Peter and Paul Cathedral. No matter how small it may seem to us, its wingspan is actually almost 4 meters. Besides the beauty, the angel performs the most prosaic function. It's a real weathercock, and it's always possible to determine which way the wind blows. The design was arranged so that the cross which holds the angel is stationary. We are approaching the Trinity Bridge. Notice its lacy spans. They are the reason the bridge is called Eiffel's Tower Brother. This is not surprising. After all, Eiffel himself was really involved in the construction. An example of the Soviet pilot Chikharov flees under the Trinity Bridge was everything. He did the entire commute to cause his future life. For that, he was imprisoned in guardhouse by the canal. To the left, behind the Trinity Bridge, begins Petersburg. Close to the bridge, there is a Trinity Square, intended to repeat the experience in Russian lands. The necessity to build canals in the city was not only due to Tsar's love for Amsterdam, but also due to a problem of swamp drainage. Canals have also saved the city from the devastating floods and with cheap and convenient transport connections. In the early summer of 1703, near its foundation, the first workers started to arrive at St. Petersburg. They were workers from Schleswig, a fortress located on the left bank of the Ibar River near Lake Lago. Besides them, soldiers from the army's regiments and locals from the surrounding villages were involved in construction. The main part of the city builders were workers and craftsmen. The main workforce was groups of peasants from far inland regions and small vessels moored. Boats moored to special rings driven into the wall with summer pipes. All the palaces, including large noble estates, at Peter's times had own wharves. After some time, all of them, including the wharf, were filled in. Opposite the summer garden, on the opposite bank of the Tanka River, there was a 2-story building with columns and domes. In the 1830s, there was a lawsuit which graduated many prominent in Russian culture. One of its most famous of them is composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. We are floating along the river from Tanka. Now it flows through the very center of St. Petersburg. The word fontan in Russian language is similar to English fountain and has the same meaning. Fountain's water was supplied by special pipes flowing through the river and got its rich decorations which we enjoy today. If we were not looking on the building for water, but for the summer garden, a large glass dome of a museum of decorative and applied art would be visible clear. Next to it was the museum, you can find out about the history of this The impressive orange building straight ahead is Mikhailovsky Castle. It stands where the river Moika originates from the Fontanka River. The castle was built at the turn of 18th and 19th centuries by Emperor Paul I and became his official residence. Paul I is the son of Catherine the Great. His mother came to power by way of a palace coup, and she distanced herself from her son and gave him no right to interfere in state affairs. This had led to Paul's rejection of Catherine's policy aspirations to change her heritage, impress Elizabeth's grim power and severe confined space. From all sides, the building was surrounded by water. Suspended bridges were placed through ditches and raised at night time, turning the castle into a fortress. However, these numerous precautions were in vain. Paul I had been living in the building was considered one of the most beautiful circus buildings in Europe. It amazed contemporaries with perfect proportions and fine decor. The circus was as ornate on the inside. A bridge in front of us is resting on a small square where one of the oldest cathedrals of St Petersburg is located. It is the church of Saints Simeon and Anna. In the times of Peter the Great, Fontanka's bank from here and up to Nevsky Avenue was completely empty. The Tsar had given this land to his daughter Anna to celebrate the naming of the princess. Later, Empress Anna Ioannovna had secured a connection between this place and her name by building a cathedral and dedicating it in honor of her patroness saint, Sibyl Ant, to merchants to become commercial. On the left, you can see a long yellow three-story building in which the central part is emphasized with an 8-column portico. It was built in the early 19th century, a project of Giacomo Quarengi, in specific forms of classical austerity for Catherine's Institute for Noble Maidens. Nowadays, the building of most women's institutions in the country was set up. It was exactly during her reign that the whole system of educational and fostering of institutions was created. Downstream at the intersection of the Fontanka River with the main city street Nevsky Avenue is the Anichkov Bridge, one of the most famous bridges of St. Petersburg. It is decorated with 4 sculptural groups, the horse tamers, depicting the 4 stages of man taming a horse. They are designed by the architect Peter Klott and are one of his best works. The history of this bridge began almost with the founding of St. Petersburg. At that time, the first wooden bridge located here was the city border. It got its name from Lieutenant Colonel Anichkov, who commanded the battalion which built the crossing. The wooden bridge had a road barrier. Documents were checked of people coming in, and a fee was charged for imported goods. At night, they watched that wolves would not enter the city from forests nearby, shown on the other side, facing the direction of Litani Avenue. With the naming of the Anichkov Bridge, the name of the Anichkov Palace is connected. It stands on the right bank of the Fontanka. It is a light building with columns. The palace was constructed upon request of the Empress Elizaveta Petrovna for her minion, Count Razumovsky. Catherine the Great, who had ascended the throne, gave the palace to her minion, Prince Potyomkin. Favoritism or distribution of positions and benefits unconnected to professional merit, but as a matter of personal interest and sympathy of the monarch, was absolutely typical in European countries of the 18th century. One of the most beautiful groceries is famous Eliseevsky shop on Nevsky Avenue. It still exists in a building for which it was built especially. What mostly draws admiration is the fact that the family ancestor Peter Eliseev was a serf originally and was given freedom for excellent service. Peter has created his vast fortune having neither money nor social status. Pay attention to a group of buildings of the Ministry of Finance on the left. The most prominent is the Treasury, a grand, austere, grey-looking building with wide colonnade. Its rich interiors contrast with the austere facade. For example, the operating hall of 3,000 square meters is the largest hall in St. Petersburg. Often in descriptions of Petersburg, they say that it is located on 101 islands. Indeed, before, that was exactly the number of islets that constituted the city. Many of them have disappeared, or merged together by man, or on the contrary separated with canals. The number is still debated on, but approximately the territory of St. Petersburg includes about 50 islands.
Central bank. Central bank, okay.
The bridge in front of us leads to a richly decorated building with a green facade on the right. It is former house of Count Apraxin, which now houses the Toftanogov Bolshoi Drama Theatre. It was founded with the direct participation of the writer Maxim Gorky and the poet Alexander Blok, the famous Russian literary figures. In the middle of the 20th century, its main director had become Georgy Toftanogov, who ran the theatre for over 30 years and had made it the best theatre for USSR. Toftanogov was distinguished for his ability to see real-life stories behind each play, and contemporary theatre productions still bear the imprint of his talent. From the very beginning of St. Petersburg, Peter I had wanted to create a ring of country houses and palaces around the capital. The riverbanks and confluence of the Canal had become countryside. These days, these country estates are located in the heart of the sprawling city. Before Peter I, many estates were constructed asphalt. Or a vegetable garden overlooking the street, where a house was in the center of the estate, surrounded by a meeting place for hippies and rockers. Many famous Russian rock singers were rehearsing and just hanging out there. After numerous palaces and parks, an unexpected industrial landscape might catch your eye. Above the embankment rise 4 pipes of CHP Plant 1, constructed in a typical plant style of the 19th century. This building has a long history. It was commissioned as the power plant of the Belgian Society of Electric Lighting. After its opening, the first steam engine in St. Petersburg was launched there. It's one of the oldest power plants of the city and is called the Sleeping Elephant. It seems like a giant animal is dozing on its back, and the 4 pipes are elephant's legs held up in the air. On the right we can see three-story houses with triangular gables, very similar in architecture, but in different colors. They are called Three Sisters. The houses were built for the daughters of the first director of the Imperial Court Chapel, called Taratsky. One of them was married to the director of the public library and the chairman of the Academy of Arts, Alexei Alenkov. Due to loyal views of its owner, the most outstanding representatives of the Russian literary intellectuals had gathered here. The famous Russian poet, Alexander Pushkin, had also been visiting quite often. On the left bank of the Fontanka, you can see a large yellow building with columns. It is the former Obukhov Hospital, one of the first hospitals in Russia, opened in the late 18th century. It was a mercy house for mental patients, Russia's first institution of its kind. Initially, the House of Mercy was painted in traditional for St. Petersburg yellow color. That's why this institution has received the name of Yellow House among people. This expression lives still. In Russia, any mental ward may be figuratively called a yellow. Here gathered the artistic, literary and political elite of the country. Meetings of the famous literary society, lovers of the Russian word, were arranged. Here, the participants read aloud their works and discussed the issues of Russian literature. To mark St. Petersburg's 300th anniversary, the central block of the estate was opened Museum of Gavrila Derzhavin and Russian literature of his time. Right ahead is the Izmailovsky Bridge. Its name is connected with the Izmailova Imperial Guards Regiment, which was stationed nearby. At the end of the 19th century, near the Izmailovsky Bridge, there was arranged an ice rink. A popular attraction among young people was backed up by music. Vertical cyclists and high water. These days, this problem is solved. The complex of protective structures is built around the city. The first flood occurred in the city only 3 months after its foundation. Its architecture had played an important role as well. These days, St. Petersburg's canals and rivers seem very deep. Before, there was enough for the water to rise by only 1.5 meters to flood the central part of the city. They said that even before the foundation of St. Petersburg, the bridge was built in the middle of the 20th century due to necessity to cross over heating pipes over the Fontanka. To the right, behind Krasnoarmeysk Bridge, is a turn into the Krukov Canal, which connects the Fontanka River, the Bayedov Canal, and the Moika River. Behind this canal, the Fontanka, which is now to our left, flows into a part of St. Petersburg, which used to be its suburb and was called Kolonka. Fontanka's banks are strikingly different here from its architectural features of this point allow you to see 7 bridges at one time from here. The bridge in front of us is called Staronikolsky. Once we pass it to the left, there will be Mikhailov Bridge. From the point there, you need to do the count. While counting the bridges, you need to, as usual, make a wish. From 7 bridges along the Krukov Canal, a blue bell tower and gilded domes of St. Nicholas Naval Cathedral can already be seen. Earlier, there was a parade ground of the naval regiments and barracks of naval department. The cathedral accommodates about 5,000 people at one time. Historically, the cathedral is divided into 2 parts, the upper and the lower churches. The lower St. Nicholas Church was consecrated in the name of St. Nicholas, which is traditionally considered the patron of sailors and travelers. It's chained to a hoop, tightly sealed with the merchant's name. A richly decorated black house on the right is a revenue house of a chocolate king Vekhe, built in the early 20th century by architect Sergei Ovsyannikov. The house was built in Neo-Renaissance style and is richly decorated with ornaments and reliefs. It is decorated with the second largest Atlantic symbol. Due to the fact that St. Petersburg was a trading port, many Russian and foreign merchants used to live here. They knew how to use particularities of the city location in their own way. For example, due to frequent floods, they attributed to a sudden surge of water non-existing losses or destructions of goods. Alexandrovna, the wife of Russian Emperor Alexander II. The Mariinsky Theatre in its current form was opened with Glinka's opera Life for the Tsar, immediately after the revolution. Nowadays, a visit to the opera or ballet at the Mariinsky Theatre is almost a must-do in city's visitors program. On our left, there is the building of the second stage of the Mariinsky Theatre. It is a modern building with very tall, narrow windows of rectangular shape and a large glass entrance. Its history begins in the end of the 20th century when the head of the Mariinsky Theatre, Valery Gergiev, addressed the President of the Russian Federation, Boris Yeltsin, with a proposal to extend the theatre. A Frenchman, Dominique Perrault, won the competition for the construction of a new addition. The project was actively discussed in Russian media, and many locals say that the building does not look like a theatre. Red brick walls with large arched windows behind tall trees along the way are the facilities of New Holland Island. It is the only island of the Uvar Delta which was created artificially. It is in the history of Russian information wars and then announced their victory. St. Petersburg was protected by many special decrees regulating lives of its citizens. Thus, until the mid-19th century, it was strictly prohibited to smoke on the streets of St. Petersburg. This decree had saved many lives. Due to careless handling of fire, before the regulation was enforced, fire outbreaks were frequent. Houses were finally enumerated. It turned out that some of the streets are passing through several city districts. Houses' numbers in each district started with 1. Thus, in one street, there could be 3 houses with the same number simply because this street was passing through 3 different districts. Peter I, without thinking twice, had ordered to enumerate all the houses in a row, from the first to the last. So the houses with 3 and even 4-digit numbers appeared. We have turned into the Moika River and are now passing under 2 bridges in a row. The first one is called Krasnoarmeysk. This carries heating pipes underneath. The second one is called Bridge of Kisses. They say that in the 18th century, when the Moika River was city's boundary, sailors and anyone who was leaving the city said goodbyes to their loved ones on Potsylluyev Bridge. According to another version, stuck to the bridge next to it. To the right, there stands Princess Yusupov's palace. It is a yellow building with columns. All in all, the Yusupovs, an ancient and very rich Russian princely family, had more than 50 palaces in Russia, not including foreign residences. But this palace, due to its capital location, is considered the main. Let us attach a tower with a spire in Gothic style to it in our minds, and cut through the main entrance from a butting end. We'll get a former building of the German Reformed Church in front of us, built in the mid-19th century. In the guise of the church, built of red brick and topped with high two-story tower with a spire, were combined the features of the Romanesque and Baltic Gothic styles. The church hall was solemn and severe, with grand arches and large stained glass windows. The temple, effectively, house walls supported each other. The romantic courtyards of St. Petersburg had actually appeared for a quite prosaic reason. It was necessary to save the highest levels of flooding in St. Petersburg. Nowadays, such floods are no longer happening, since a dam was constructed in the Gulf of Finland to protect the city from environmental disaster. Let's go back to the Blue Bridge. It is the widest in St. Petersburg. Its width is nearly 100 meters, but a lot of passers-by do not even notice that, simply because they do not notice the bridge. It is built in such a way that it is actually a part of St. Isaac's Square, and it's best to admire St. Isaac's Cathedral and the monument to Emperor Nicholas I from this point. St. Petersburg was built on the site of scattered villages, located on the banks of the Neva. Therefore, almost all the inhabitants of the new city were non-residents. The basis of the first generation of a large category of workers and convicts. Ahead of us is the Red Bridge. It's remarkable for keeping its original appearance. That's what the bridges over the Moika River were like in the 19th century. Of course, the bridge has been reconstructed and turned from cast iron into steel, but its appearance has been saved. It is located on Gorokhovaya, P Street, which is... The name of the building is a combination of the names of businessmen and partners who owned this house. Here, pret-a-porter clothing for men and women was sold. You can see the names of the departments painted in gold in French and Russian languages on the building wall. The store was the first multi-story store in Russia, known as By the Red Bridge. Besides the store, sewing workshops were located. The 20th century a clothing factory was opened. Residents of St. Petersburg claimed that the dome of the trading house built near Admiralty drew views on itself and thus damaged the Moika's tranquil landscape. By the way, during the Soviet period, this recognizable dome was dismantled and was reconstructed in the 21st century using photographs. It's hard to believe that the city of St. Petersburg is not the only one in the world. In the United States, for example, there are 15 cities with exactly the same name. Living in St. Petersburg with a view on the canal meant not only to build a house there, but also to take care of the area around it. For example, a deed of gift for house construction in the vicinity of the Moika was issued under condition of the mandatory finishing of the canal with timber edging. Emperor Peter the Great took constant care of his pet project and even issued an act. Originally, the emperor wanted to build the city in stone, but due to lack of construction materials and duration of construction of such houses in the first years of city life, there were many wooden buildings. Sidewalls were wooden as well. Therefore, the main worry of authorities was fire safety. Fires provoked panic, but Peter I, the founder of St. Petersburg, regular construction was of high importance. The districts which were for some reason built up randomly at first were altered, and houses were still far beyond the glass shores. For example, in the late 20th century, St. Petersburg's flag was set in the North Pole by polar explorers from Petersburg. Never mind the North Pole. 220 million kilometers away from the city of Neva, there is a planet called Leningrad, which was opened by a Soviet astronomer. That was St. Petersburg's name in the 20th century. Residents of St. Petersburg had to cobble and gravel the street in front of their houses, maintain drainage ditches.